Tonight on TNA Impact, Hulk Hogan and Abyss make a tag team match for March 8th against Ric Flair and AJ Styles. The Nasty Boys are still wrestling on television, and Jeff Jarrett is flipping burgers right here, right now. It's the TNA Impact review from Big Al and the Kick-Ass Wrestling Show.
What you want? What you want?
Hulk Hogan and Abyss made a match with AJ Styles and Ric Flair for Monday, March 8th, when TNA goes live and moves permanently to Monday nights. I thought the promo work tonight was fantastic from Hulk Hogan. I thought Abyss was great on the microphone. He came out when he was called out by Ric Flair and AJ Styles, who were pissed off that he had the Hall of Fame ring. Ric Flair cut an awesome promo, big shocker, I know, cut a great promo on Abyss, where he was livid that Abyss was given that Hall of Fame ring. He said, "I worked my whole life for this!" And Abyss just has the ring. So he looked really legitimately upset. Abyss did good. I don't like this. They have him with the American-made theme now, Hulk Hogan's old theme from WCW. I don't think that's such a good idea. He can still be his own character and have the ring and you know, have all these powers, or whatever that's all about. I don't know if it makes him stronger or it's all in his head, you know, what they're doing with that, but that's probably the best way to go. As far as using the WWE's Hall of Fame ring, yeah, that gives the WWE a mention and sort of puts them over. But you have to remember, TNA is very small compared to the WWE, and so they're kind of attacking the WWE with this angle, mentioning the Bret Hart thing, what they did with Earl Hebner. They're going at the WWE. They've made a conscious decision. I think that's a great move, because you have to go at number one. You have to, you know, you got to get, that's how you get mentioned, that's how you get attention. They're attacking the guys at the top. That's what the WWF did against WCW when they took the tank there. They were being really aggressive. They were losing in the ratings war, and they were, you know, they weren't just mentioning WCW. They were going to their events. So I think that's a smart move. I really do. I don't know about using the Hall of Fame ring. I don't think that really matters one way or the other, but I have no problem with going at the WWE. I could see the problem here might be, you know, that you're making it look like this ring has value, but I think Hogan at the end of this storyline is going to pretty much trash the ring and say it has no value, and Abyss will just have, you know, his powers on his own, like the Wizard of Oz. All along, you know, he had this strength and it was within him, and he thought it was this ring. So that's probably what's going to end up happening with that storyline. I thought that storyline and those promos were great. Other than that, this Impact was completely terrible. I mean, they had, and I'm a big fan of promos, I'm a big fan of interviews, I'm a big fan of character development, guys with charisma, personality. I'm into that stuff. I like the storylines. I love good wrestling, but you have to have the stories. Good wrestling does not sell me by itself. Never will, and it'll never sell the masses by itself. So, for me, you have to have a mix. Tonight wasn't a mix. It was, you know, 80 to 90% skits, storylines, interviews, and very, very little wrestling. I can't remember hardly any that they did. I know Kaz had a match with Brian Kendrick, which was okay and extremely fast. I know that Mr. Anderson was going to have a match for the global title, and he was laid out by Kurt Angle. You know, it wasn't too much. The Nasty Boys had a quick match against the Dudleys. Do you get where I'm going here with the wrestling? There was really no wrestling tonight. The main event was Abyss against Desmond Wolfe. Again, that barely lasted, and it was to build up, you know, the tag team storyline, but they could have done a lot better than that. The main event, the matches overall were awful. This was a bad night for wrestling, but an okay night, I guess, for promos. Anderson cut a decent promo, as he usually does. You know, Jarrett's flipping burgers. Bischoff's pissed at him, sent him off to flip burgers because he wouldn't use the bat. He's sending Foley around. You know, it seemed like things are kind of all over the place, and none of it made a whole lot of sense tonight. Like I said, I thought the Abyss stuff worked, the Hogan stuff worked, Flair and AJ. Everything else was kind of all over the place for me, and it wasn't really working. So, bad wrestling, and you have to give more time to wrestling. I'm not saying you need to be a 2-hour show, 2 hours straight wrestling, but you have to base your show around what's going on inside the ring. At least that's what they used to do when wrestling was really good and really successful in the 80s, and even in the 90s. There were some great matches during the Monday Night Wars on television. So we want to see more of that, and we didn't tonight. I hope TNA places more of an emphasis on big, main event matches, and they were just doing this to, kind of cruise in to March 8th. I hope that was the case, because tonight's show wasn't that good. It was mostly promos. And I wonder what they're doing with Desmond Wolfe, which brings us to the next topic, Desmond Wolfe. He wrestled in a match at the end of the show tonight against Abyss, and he lost pretty quickly. But the interesting thing was when it was all said and done, Ric Flair came out with AJ Styles and jumped him. Desmond Wolfe got involved. He stayed involved. He got some handcuffs. He handcuffed Abyss to the ropes, and he helped out when they laid a beat down on Hulk Hogan. So what are they doing with Desmond Wolfe? If they're just letting him job out, if they're forgetting about him, that's terrible. I got a tweet from someone who said perhaps they're forming some type of a 4 horseman deal here with Ric Flair as kind of the manager, and Desmond Wolfe is a part of that. That's a great idea. I hope they're going in that direction, but I'm not going to give TNA credit for that because we don't know what they're doing yet. There was something else that was decent about this show, and that's the little tag team rivalry that seems to be developing between Morgan and Hernandez and Beer Money. Beer Money was in the ring, and they were saying they sell the most merchandise. I wonder why. Your name is Beer Money, so your gimmick's kind of selling itself there, which is good. But they were talking about how they're the best tag team, and Hernandez comes out by himself to say, we'll give you a title shot. Morgan didn't take too kindly to that, but they are going to give them that tag team title shot. So I do like that emphasis. I think both those teams are good, but I think they're breaking up Matt Morgan and Hernandez. It looks like that's the way they're going. So Beer Money might be able to pick up those titles, and I think both of those teams are good tag teams. I like to see Morgan and Hernandez actually stay together and maybe hone their craft a little bit. Maybe, get a little bit more cohesive, come up with a better name for your tag team, repackage the whole thing, and make them just a badass, old school Road Warriors demolition type, kicking everybody, in the teeth. That's what I would do. But of course, I'm not the booker, so you're stuck with that. Overall, TNA Impact tonight, like I said, I thought the Abyss, Hogan, Styles, Flair stuff was good. I thought the promos were good. I liked the blade job. I think that was kind of telling the WWE, we're not afraid to go there with the blood and the violence. And they went back and forth. Flair's great on the mic. So I enjoyed that stuff. It was a good rub. And I'm starting to like Abyss's character really more and more every week. Other than that, this show was extremely weak. There was almost no wrestling whatsoever. What we did see was garbage. We saw Hall and Six beat up Nash and Eric Young in, I guess, some kind of a street fight. I don't know what they were throwing at each other, but it looked light as could be, and it's bouncing around, and I don't know. That was a mess. That match just was ugly. And Scott Hall, who still looks like such a good wrestler, is so fat and so out of shape that it's almost sad to see him there. It does make me a little upset because he's still so good. You could see it in his eyes and his voice that he just let himself go, and he's not committed. So it might be time to let Scott Hall go. I don't know how committed Six, a.k.a. the 1-2-3 Kid, a.k.a. X-Pac is, but, he could still go if he wanted to. It's just a matter of, are these guys committed? Brian Knobbs and the Nasty Boys wrestling, you could do without. So for the weak wrestling, for the tons and tons of promos, of which I think only 1 or 2 angles really worked, I'm going to give TNA Impact tonight a D+. I'm going to give this the same grade I gave Raw, which means I really think both of these shows are in the toilet. If I'm going to go as low as a D, and I don't really even like to go as low as a D, these shows were bad for different reasons. Raw, I thought had a lot of bad storylines that didn't make sense and had a lot of stupid booking. TNA Impact seemed this week to just want to focus on promos and interviews, and they had a bunch of stories and skits that all seemed to be headed in no direction. So other than, like I said, the Abyss Hogan stuff with Flair and AJ, it was kind of a mess, and there was no point this week. And what happened to the Pope? He's wrestling AJ Styles coming up at the pay-per-view, and we had almost no hype at all for that match, as opposed to last week when we had some great hype for it. So after having a great show last week, and I really did think, TNA was tuning in, they were dialing in, they were getting ready for a war, this week was kind of a letdown. But we'll see how this unfolds. Subscribe to us, come back and join us. We're going to be talking about the Monday Night Wars every single Monday. I'm going to review Impact, and I'm going to review Raw, and we're going to give them both a grade and see who wins. We're going to try to call it how we see it, whether you like it or not. I'm Big Al, and this has been your TNA Impact review.